Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish. I'm thrilled to introduce my special guest, Devon Dowdell. Devon is an international award-winning photographer, a ufologist, Instagram husband, father, and best known as Jack's dad. I had the pleasure of interviewing his wife, Kimberly, a while back as well, and have looked forward to hearing Devon's perspective on their journey. Their son, Jack, was born with Down syndrome and inspires Devon to advocate and share the incredible joy that Jack brings to everyone around him. So, Devon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm super excited.
I am super excited as well. And so we loved when we had Kimberly on the show. She is a rock star, as you know, but I love the idea of being able to visit with you and see the other side of the coin with this amazing journey that you're on in raising Jack, your son. I know that for me and probably all of our listeners, the first question that would only be fair to ask is, tell us what a ufologist is.
Well, I probably have undiagnosed ADHD. Now, I've been watching
You and I both.
And I've got a ton of things I'm interested in. And I've always loved UFOs. I've read probably the top 30 books on UFOs. And I just love the conversation and studying. I've never been abducted. I've never seen anything in the sky. But it's one of those titles where there's no official degree given for a ufologist. So I like to just slap it on there.
I think it's a great title. And I think with your commitment to it, it should be an actual title or a degree. So that's pretty amazing.
I'm a big believer in them, but that's an interesting conversation itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I could have a lot of fun talking about that, maybe over a baseball game someday. That would be pretty fun. Very good. So let's talk about Jack, and let's talk about your and Kimberly's journey. I want to encourage our listeners to listen to this podcast that we did with Kimberly and get her perspective. But as I've shared, we're really having a focus for a short season as part of our podcast and being able to bring dads on of guests that we've already had or spouses of guests that we've already had, the dad's perspective. And so, this is a scenario, Devon, where you have a unique entry into the Down syndrome world that is probably unlike any guest that I've had on the show yet to this date. And so can you share about your introduction into the Down syndrome world and what that was like?
I can. And you want me to start with the birth of Jack?
Yeah. Okay.
So to do that, we need to kind of go back to 2002 to 2008. I'm working for a mortgage company in San Diego. I'm a young guy with a couple kids born there. We got 3 kids, but by 2008, Kimberly and I's 8th anniversary, I get a call in the morning. I had taken the day off for our anniversary and said, "Hey, there's an emergency company call. You need to jump on." And so I jump on the company call, and they're like, "Okay, all 4,000 people on this call, you're laid off today." Our anniversary, we're going to the zoo, and then we got a romantic dinner in the evening, and I got this news. Things have been going really bad in the mortgage industry. So I was concerned, but no one was saying, "Hey, you're going to probably lose your jobs." We've been talking about a few things. What's hard about that is with the mortgage industry, my job, everybody that I knew in the industry was looking for a job. So it's very hard to find another one, and nobody's hiring. And there's tons of people with my experience or close to my experience looking for jobs. And then also your house has gone down with the market as this collapses. So I've lost all the equity in my home. I lost my income, and we ended up selling the house because we couldn't make the payment. And we got in a truck, and I had decided to go back to school because I had this great experience in the banking industry, especially on the mortgage side, but there was not a home for that job at that time. And so I said, why don't I go and tool up a little bit and get, so we we decided to go to Southern Utah because my parents lived there, and I was focused on the degree in graphic design. I got a BFA into graphic design. But a little story here, it's kind of interesting because I went in to see if I could get some help to go to school, with no job, 3 kids, my wife. And he goes, okay, well, I'm going to check you down as homeless. And I'm like, I'm not homeless. I'm living in my parents' basement. He's like, well, technically, that's the definition. You're a married man with 3 kids, and someone's letting you live in their basement. You're homeless. So, I, we, we have a loving
That's a
family.
dose of humility right there, right?
We have a loving family and a great support, with church and family that wouldn't let us be on the street. But it was really interesting as a father. I'm taking care of the kids, and it's my responsibility to tell me that I'm homeless. Um, so that was it was interesting. So the government definition, we were homeless. It definitely felt like we were at the bottom. Things were not going well for us, but we went through a year, and we decided to have a time having another baby. So we have 3 right now, 3 kids at this time. A couple of months after I graduate, thinking I'll be back getting a job, and I got some prospects for some work, and with this degree. So I did graduate, and I did get an offer for a job that was going to bring us income and health insurance, which was the whole plan was working out really well. But then because the team that was training me was coming from India, I don't want to get into details. Their visas were held up. Well, my job, the start date got pushed back, pushed back, pushed back, and then the pregnancy is coming closer and closer. So my first day of work was in. I'm sorry. I was also had to train for the first 2 months in Chicago for this job.
Goodness.
And the team from India is going into Chicago. So I left on a Sunday in September, and we had worked with the doctors because we knew Kimberly was due. She was due 2 weeks from the day I started. And he said, you know what, I'm going to just induce you because I got to come home in 2 weeks from my work. We're going to induce you. You can be home for the weekend and have the
It's a
baby.
lot.
And I get it when we're telling this story. People are like, "Well, why don't you just take the time off? Why don't you stay at home?"
You're,
You got to understand. I'm coming out of I've been homeless. I've got three
yeah,
kids. This is the job. This is how I'm going to pay for the baby.
yeah,
And you can't really just go, "Oh, hey, thanks for hiring me. I need days off today."
yeah,
And I share that because a lot of men can understand this. When I'm telling the
100%.
story, some people are kind of like, "It doesn't make any sense. Why aren't you there?" But I've got all these pressures of being a dad that takes care, and I'm really happy to finally have that opportunity after 2 years of just scratching by and getting my degree. So I go off, and I'm gone a week. So the next Sunday comes up. I'm not coming home for another until the next Friday, and Kimberly goes into labor. And so I we had a contingency plan, which we thought we would never have to use, which was me listening to it over the phone. Well, she's going into labor. Her sister was there to help her out, luckily. And I'm in a hotel room on a Sunday
Ah,
on October 3rd, 2010, in a beautiful Chicago. Beautiful day. It's in the evening. And I'm listening to Jack's birth over the phone. So that's why I was there. That's how I listened to it over the phone. And I could go
that's
into the
so hard.
details about how we found out the details on that if you want
Please.
next, or if you have any
Yeah,
questions. Okay.
please.
So I'm listening, I've had 3 kids. I was there for all 3 of them and right in the mix of everything. And then when the baby would be delivered, I would follow the baby where the doctors kind of patch Kimberly up, and I'm watching them do all the tests and stuff. So this time I'm not there. And the phone is with Kimberly's sister next to Kimberly on the bed where she gave delivery. And I don't know why, but I kind of had like the conversations weren't the right. They said the baby's really purple, and I was just really concerned. And I didn't know whether to chalk it up to me just not being there and hearing voices. And so after a few minutes, they were like, we need to heat the baby up. They came and put skin to skin with Kimberly. And again, I'm listening to this all over the phone. And I'm like, is everything okay? Everything okay? And then the nurses come in and they say everything is fine. The baby's healthy. The baby's breathing. And Kimberly had heard them say, is there a heart murmur? And they said, no, no heart murmur to the doctor. And she was like, she's telling me after the nurses left that. And I'm like, we're like, both good. There's no heart murmur. And they said the baby's fine. And I've been listening for a couple of hours. And I said, I haven't eaten any dinner. I'm just going to get a snack and come back real quick. And when I come back, I get a call from her and she says the doctor came in and they think the baby has Down syndrome. And I said, what? I said, Down syndrome. Wow. Can I talk to him? And she says, no, he came in, told me the baby had Down syndrome and he could see the shock on my face and he left. And that's just all he said. He said, I shouldn't have said that. There's probably no problem. And I said, I'd really love to know why he's saying that. And so this was now talking on him from a male's perspective is I'm not there to talk to this doctor. I wasn't there to help this because that conversation, if I was in that room, would have gone totally different.
Yeah.
And I would have chased him down the hall, but I'm tied to a phone about 2,000 miles away from the delivery. And that was interesting. So we had to wait till the next morning to find out. And the next morning we find out that he has the simian crease on his hand, which is common. Well, I believe all Down syndrome have it, but some non-Down syndrome could I could be wrong, but I believe that's the truth on it. So if they see that, they're very concerned. So they were a little confused because there's no heart condition, there's no other condition going on, but they see the simian crease, and they say that they feel like his eyes are a little more almond shaped. And again, I'm over the phone, and so they are concerned. So they do some testing, but I told Kimberly, I said, look, if he does have Down syndrome, he was born into the right family because we're going to love the heck out of him. But what I want to get into a little bit, unless you have a question.
Well, first, I just want to recognize and point out and empathize with you as a dad,
Yes.
as a provider, as a protector, as someone who loves our spouses with all our heart. I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been to be in a hotel room 2,000 miles away. You're doing everything in your power to be able to help provide for your family and give
Mm-hmm.
them the life that they deserve. And one, you are faced with this scenario where you are not there physically for your son's birth. And then two, when the diagnosis of Down syndrome comes, I know that you would want for nothing more than to be there with Kimberly and to support her and encourage her, and how lonely and a challenging time that must have been.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I've never heard a diagnosis story quite like this one, and just my heart goes out. And I also just have a ton of respect for you as father in making those hard decisions to be able to do whatever it takes to provide for your family. Like, you have complete grace on that for sure.
I'm glad you brought that up because as a man, you're juggling. And look, women have a whole nother sack of problems and issues that they're dealing with. But it's kind of interesting.
Yep.
This is why you're bringing and speaking to me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. But as a man, we're struggling with, especially if you're the main provider. And I understand some families you're not, and some families it's
Yeah,
shared. But in this
of course.
circumstance, Kimberly's going to be home, and I'm the main provider. She's doing things like teaching group fitness, but obviously being a mom, especially to a newborn, it's a full-time job as well.
Right. That's
But
right.
I'm sitting there struggling, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what's best for my family? Should I quit my job? And then I'm like, well,
Yeah.
then I'm home with the baby, but we've got no insurance. And so, I mean, I'll get into a few more things, but it's really good. I didn't quit my job because quite the hospital bills coming at us we didn't know yet. But um, what I did do is I went in the next morning on a Monday, and I've got this brand new boss for a week. I've got this brand new company, and I went in and I told her, I said, my son was born a week early, and I know this is a really bad time, but they really think they think he might have Down syndrome, and I'm torn because I know that you've flown a team in from India to train us. and I'm your team lead on this. And but could I get some time to go home? And she said, you certainly can. You've done a great job this week. We're going to be fine. I'm going to send you home for a week. So I did get to go home. So I flew in to Salt Lake. They got me a plane right away. They were really good for a new company.
That's great.
They're a 200-year-old company. I'm working for them for as a new employee, I should say. And I flew into Salt Lake. I got there in the evening, and southern Utah is 5 hours away. So I had to drive a car and get there in the middle of the night to see Jack and to hold him and to see my wife and give her a kiss. And that was a great experience and a great reunion. And I just got to hold the kid, and they just said he's the cutest, most beautiful baby in the world. Um, and I couldn't tell that he looked like just a normal baby to me, to tell you the truth. I know some people have said they could tell, and I couldn't. And Kimberly couldn't. I think this is why the doctors were having such a hard time. But that morning, we got more of the information to understand he did have Down syndrome.
Yeah.
I want to go into my thoughts on this,
Please.
and the I have to preface it with this because these are raw, unprepared thoughts. Okay.
The
And
rawer the better.
sometimes people take these raw thoughts and they apply it to 2 weeks later, a month later, or where I'm at now and say you must not love your kid, or you're a horrible dad. And please just understand, this is the raw of having a baby. What's the first thing people ask you when you have a baby? Is there 10 fingers, 10 toes? Is it healthy? They're asking that because this is a concern of everybody. And now we're living that concern where there is some, people are worried. But when I found out he had Down syndrome, I had this flash in my mind. And I thought of my first time hitting a home run, okay, in high school. And I thought, he's not going to be able to do that. And that's what flashed through my mind. Then I flashed through my mind getting my first kind of car in high school that I bought with my own money. I'm thinking he's not going to be able to do that. And then I thought of my first time taking with a girl to prom, which is now my wife, which is interesting. And I said he's not going to do that. And so what flashed through my mind at the beginning was these male kind of rite of passages, kind of interesting things that I felt, and some things I'm wrong on, that he wasn't going to be able to do. And that's what flashed through my mind. And that made me sad for a minute. But then I looked down, I've got this beautiful baby, and that was the last time I thought that. That was the last time that flashed through my mind. But that's what came through my mind. It was different than what happened with my wife. So that's why I wanted to share. I don't know if that's an experience other men have had, or if I'm unique to it. But
That
that's
is,
what came through my
you
mind.
you described exactly my experience, and so we're actually both baseball guys.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was just that dream of teaching my son to throw, teaching my son to hit, coaching his team, watching him go play high school ball. Would he maybe have a chance to play college baseball? And then just, what if I saw my son running on the field of a Major League Baseball stadium one day? And so you have, as a dad, and it does sound a little like selfish or even self-centered, or not what matters most. But
Yes.
like, to a dad that just welcomed his son into the world, that's what we think about a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
When you get that diagnosis, it changes things, and it's raw. Raw is the best way to describe it.
And it's so important to preface that that's just raw right at the time. I mean, I have different opinion now and different thoughts and different
For
thoughts
sure.
about his future now. But I share that because when we've done that, it's helped people, because later on, everyone I know that has a kid with Down syndrome, like, this is the greatest blessing in our lives. And then someone new is like, I don't understand. I don't understand. They're having a hard time. And when I say new, I'm talking about raw, right in the first couple
Yeah.
days.
Yep.
We had a friend. that had a guy I worked with have a kid with Down syndrome. It was a surprise birth like ours, and they were having a real hard time. And there's two gentlemen. There's myself and another gentleman there that have a child with Down syndrome. So he was working at a company, and it's a small company where there's a few people, and they were having a hard time. And I'm like, man, if you guys, have any problems, we'd love to help you out. We'd love, I mean, even if you're going to put up the baby for adoption, it might have been talking about adoption. We'd love to adopt the baby. And he's like, the other dad said that to me, and I just don't understand it.
You will.
I don't understand it. And I got to give you, I see him a year later, and he's like, man, I understand now. I understand.
That's right.
He's like, and I can share this feeling because I've got some things before I had Jack that I'm not super proud of or embarrassed of on with the special needs community. Nothing bad, but wishing now with what I knew, I acted a little bit different. And he is like, I wish I understood from the minute and I said, we all do. We all do. I promise you.
That's right.
It's something we all go through.
Yeah, I think as I know I've made this mistake, and we've had family members that have had, I can think of two or three now just off the top of my head of our extended family that have had children with Down syndrome. And Andrea and I, we made this mistake out of the gates on the first one where we are like, this is amazing.
Yes,
Like
yes.
they're like day of, and we're like, this is amazing. You are so lucky. And the reality is in that moment, it's not. And so you got to recognize that, and you have to give some grace, and you have to give a little bit of space there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely not a scenario where condolences need to be offered.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think saying I'm sorry is comes from the right place in your heart, but probably not the right thing to be able to say, because this is not a bad thing by any means. But yes, there has to be a little bit of space and a little bit of grace as those emotions are processed. And like inside on these next ones, we're just like so excited, but we don't want to show it just too much
Yes.
just yet. But yeah, in all cases, they come around to where like, this is great.
It's been to every person I've ever met. They, how this is a tough one too, because we'll run into people that'll be like, I've always wanted a kid with Down syndrome, and I think, especially with your organization, it's a kind of interesting conversation. Like, I love my child, but I don't want anybody to be born with any type of
Yeah,
disability if they don't have to. But if they are born, we're going to love them, and then. And then there's tons of babies born that need homes, and but it's not. I always am a little rough with. I wish I would have one, but
for sure.
and at the same time, I totally understand why someone would say that, because it's been the greatest experience. And when someone's around Jack, he brightens up their life, and I understand them wanting to have that in their life as much
Yeah,
as they can. And I can't think of life without it. But that's an
that's right.
interesting conversation itself.
Yeah, I've seen hundreds of families now over the last decade plus choose to answer the call to adopt a child with Down syndrome. And many of these families, some of them have a child with Down syndrome and they choose to adopt, but many of these families choose to adopt and they really don't have a connection to Down syndrome other than maybe a friend from high school or somebody that they knew that was a neighbor. It's just something inside of them that they see and feel that superpower, and they just feel called to be able to adopt a child that has Down syndrome. I have so much admiration and respect for them because I know where I was as a 29-year-old the day before Nash was born, and I was not anywhere in the entire hemisphere of processing even the thought of choosing to go and bring a child into my life that has Down syndrome. Like that was like the farthest thought that I could ever have. And like I have so much respect for those individuals that have that intuition to be able to see that.
Was Nash your first kid or
Second, first
second?
son, yeah, first son, second child. Brinley was born in November of 2002. I'm sorry, 2005, and Nash was born in July of 2007. So about a year and a half apart, roughly. So
So
it was a
we
lot.
like you had one, and I'm assuming the first one was normal. And I mean, I don't know what normal is, but as
Yeah,
as what people.
about as typical as they come. She's serving a mission for our church in Chile right now. She's about a
Great.
month there, so she's great.
We've got Jack's older brothers in Ohio, so we know exactly what you're going through on
Very
his
nice.
mission.
Yeah, you guys
Um,
had that.
what was I saying to you though? Man, I had
So
to. Why'd you bring
a
up?
question that one question that I have, I love to like this is a unique thing. Kimberly, like, you know, she's humble, but like she's a pretty big deal in the Down syndrome community, right? Like she just is. And I'd say Jack's a pretty big deal in the Down
Yes,
syndrome community. And you as a dad are like the supporting cast and behind the scenes and being able to play an ever important role of supporting Kimberly and Jack in their, like I say, pretty big deal in the Down syndrome community. How has that journey been for you in watching Kimberly and watching Jack do what I would refer to as sing the song they're meant to sing?
you know, this is an interesting conversation. Go down a couple different avenues, and they're all good. But I'll do this one for you because you and I both love baseball. But my brothers were really talented. They played at BYU, and I had dreams of playing baseball. My dad had pitched minor league baseball, but I got injured my senior year. So I'd always wanted to be this baseball star. And as you watch baseball games, you got these guys doing these amazing things, hitting their a record-setting home run or winning World Series, and they go in the crowd and they hug their wives and they give them a kiss and their family and stuff. And I've thought, man, that's kind of tough. Well, to watch that and be the person on the bench is kind of an interesting experience. Well, reverse roles. And the wife in the stands where my wife is the baseball player hitting the home runs. And I'm just sitting there so excited about it all. And I'm watching it. And when she comes over the sideline, I'm so excited to give her a hug. And had always pictured me as doing that, but the totally reversed. And I'm so excited to be married to, for this example, the home run hitter, the record
Yep.
breaker. And I'm just get to watch it all with Jack and her doing it. It's been such an awesome experience. I think I'm her number one cheerleader. She says I am. But
I love that.
man, when I realized that the analogy had been turned around, I was like, this is so cool. So
That's a
I've
great
really,
analogy.
really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, and I think you're doing a great job of it too.
Yeah,
Like I really do think you're doing a great job, and those two are singing the song they're meant to sing, and I think in
yeah.
its own special way, you are singing the song you're exactly meant to sing as well as their number one fan and their biggest support and encourager to be able to help them to do that work that they need to do.
So after college, graduated in 2010 after Jack's birth, I had my BFA. Well, his birth came after I graduated a couple months, but I got my BFA, Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Graphic Design, and then companies were starting to hire again for banking. So I went into banking. I haven't been able to use much of that skill set. So
Wow.
when Kimberly got very popular, I started to be able to help with website
Yeah.
design and links and creation of things and use those skill sets. So it's been really fun being on the back end,
Yep.
helping it out and being part of this. A part of it, but I tell her nobody wants to see this face. Well, you and Jack are a lot better looking than me, so I stay on the back end. But that's another avenue where this has been able. It's a passion of mine, and I love what I do for work. But this is like being able to do the graphic design and just the creativity has been a lot of fun on the back end as well.
Good for you. Well, everything happens and transpires in our life for a reason. We're all entrusted with these experiences, and you think of how you were able to go through what you went through just in being able to go through those steps to get to where you are professionally now, but you were able to have a little detour where you got that impact and that opportunity to be a great graphic designer that's helping Jack and Kimberly sing the song they're meant to sing.
It's
Just
so true.
happens exactly how it's supposed to. Well, Devin, this has been an incredible conversation. I appreciate you sharing just being so vulnerable, so raw in how you approach this. I have to just think we've got to get to a baseball game together sometime. And so whether that's at a first pitch that Coop does in an MLB stadium, in fact, he's got one with the Bees this year, their
Wow.
new stadium. So maybe we can even arrange for that one. But you and I need to sit down and watch a baseball game and have a lot of fun and talk a little UFO. I think that would be a pretty fun time.
I am up to talking UFO anytime with anybody that's interested. I loved it.
Very good. Well, thanks for being a guest on the show, Devon.
Love that. Thanks for the invitation. I've had a great time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.